Journeys Ahead. Lineage. Chapter 8. A Few Brave Souls. Written and narrated by T.S. ProArt. With a glitch and stutter within Void's portal system, he, along with everyone else, didn't emerge into the fancy half of Aurora. Rather, they appeared outside of it, and atop the large bridge that went across the city's waterway. "Hey, aren't we supposed to be over there?" Coco asked as she leapt upwards and stood upon Nock's thumper, pointing at the city about a mile off. Scrap. The Reformattor's firewall reach must have a large barrier length. Looks like we're gonna have to foot it from here. Void reasoned with a worried strain as he and the others took notice of several ameliorates crawling out from turned over cars as well as below the massive roadway they stood upon. The monsters all hissed and snarled with ungodly tones. Their eyes shimmered with hate, while their tendrils arose with a weakened famish. They were ready to feast, starving for their next attack. Everyone on Void's side could see it. Looks like we'll have to each take down about 10 if we're going to get through to the city. Jida speculated while summoning forth her cosmic fire to her hands and hair.
10 each? That's just target practice in my eyes.
Tucker grumbled out with a smirk as he loaded a mag into his weapon. I still think the Bird Brains army would be really appreciated right about now. Cott stuttered out as he shakily gripped a pair of blaster controls behind Nock. That it would. Alfred? Void inquired towards his companion, who nodded with a squint in his eyes.
As you wish, Orb.
The mystical warrior replied with a focused and ready tone in his voice. Rearing his starstone spear around, Alfred rose its sharp end up and twisted the blade's handle, releasing a large blast out to the sky. Like a firework, an array of beautiful glimmering lights exploded above within a vast array of colors and shines, signifying that the message had been sent. It was time for battle.
They'll be here shortly, Novason,
assured the large bird with a nod and readying stance with his spear. Don't let the tendrils wrap around your necks. That's their main form of attack. They'll choke you out and then they'll drain you. Joby exclaimed as she got atop Void's back, while Gluppy sat atop hers. Where should we aim then, little one? Jed asked as his face created the image of a pixelated battle mask over his regular dopey eyes and mouth. Aim for their heads and or eyes. That's their weak points. The little girl boasted as the ameliorates began to charge forward, all hissing and screaming with the wails of hundreds of broken souls. You heard her. Stay on guard and ready yourselves. Don't stop till we reach the city. Void boasted with Pofnu accompanying his words with an electrical bark. Moments after, the Spark took the lead with his spear as everyone charged in right after him, ready to protect their home. With determination fueling within his soul, Void reared his spear back and took a massive leap forward. Going high into the air, he eyed down the first ameliorite within his sights and brought forth his father's weapon down in a devastating strike, ramming it right through its cobweb-looking eyeball. As the spear's tip exited out of the back of the monster's skull and struck the ground, the impact released a small wave of electricity to crawl out, destroying several of the monsters behind and sending some over the bridge. Upon the Spark's left, Jida flipped through the air and delivered a comet-speeding kick upon a nearby matter monster, completely crushing it below her heels at landfall. Rolling forward, she threw her hands out at both sides and ignited a pair of burning energy blades from the roofs of her fists. With a swift spin-out kick, Jida twirled herself back up with the elegance of a figure skater and slashed apart several more of the creatures in one burning swoop of cosmic energy. Running closely behind, Nock and Cott, who piloted the Thumper, rose the machine's two massive arm cannons and opened fire forwards with devastating effects. Within a flash, a whole section of the charging ameliorites were dissolved to ash as the large machine ran forward in a powerful display of fury. Using an energized charge to the robot's feet, Nock jumped the machine forward to stand in front of his sister to help aid and protect her given the circumstances of what was residing within her body. As the Thumper landed with a shockwave impact, Coco took her chance and propelled off the machine's side. Flipping forward, the kind frog's once happy face fell to that of an angered glare as she delivered a fearsome kick into one of the beasts, and striking another with a accompanied swing with her staff. As more of the matter monsters began to surround the young frog, she eyed the nearest one at her side and did something unexpected. Opening her mouth, Coco shot out her tongue and lashed it around the monster's neck. With a smirk, she rolled herself around, using the ameliorite in her grasp as a makeshift wrecking ball. One by one, the monsters around her were knocked over, all up till Coco let go of the creature on her tongue and sent it flailing into the air. Ugh! Gross! She gagged before grabbing her staff and charging forward with the others. As the ameliorite Coco threw went up and over, Jet, now within the air, shot its eye out as he provided an aerial advantage, striking from above and taking out the monsters that the others below failed to notice. Due to his system-wide range of agility, Jet was able to hit shot after shot without fail, using his arm blasters along with several extra weapons. Shoulder turrets, knee blasters, even his little belly fan erupted out laser bullets with the speed of a machine gun. As one would say, looks were deceiving, and Jet was no exception. Back on the ground, Tucker was moving faster than everyone had ever seen him before. He was good with it, really good. With his weapon in hand, the large soldier got off shot after shot, rolling around monsters and even straight up punching one in the face with his bare knuckles.
Come and get some, you little freaks!
He bellowed before taking a grenade out of one of his pouches and throwing it upwards. As the explosive arose, Sarv swooped in from above and twirled with a harsh force that struck the grenade, sending it flying into the further back of the crowd of ameliorites. As the bomb clanked upon the ground, an uproar of flames ignited to life and cleared the path further through the city. However, a few still remained that both Sarv and Tucker began to fire upon, now side by side. Running ahead with Pofnu at his hip, Alfred took his cloak and threw it off, revealing the battle armor beneath, along with some black feathers that blew off the back of his head. Without a word, the Crescent twirled himself into the air and spun with a powerful essence that sent starstone shards out into the air. Like a bunch of light bullets, tiny pellets of stardust struck the ameliorites within the Crescent's path, causing them to stumble and whine in sudden pain. Using this to her advantage, Pofnu rushed some of the creatures and tackled them down by burying her sharp teeth-filled muzzle into their eyes. With shocking speed, Pofnu jumped from one creature and then to another without stop, all while Alfred landed back down and began to slash and stab with his spear, working with the woodland critter as one unstoppable force. Using his spear, Void sent out a blast of electricity, struck the ground with its earth shock, and even threw the weapon into the air to create a shower, using all of the spear's options to his disposal. As the weapon rose up and landed a ways off, Void huffed with anger and brought forth his battle axe. "Huddle in close, kiddo," Void called to Joby as he rushed forward and spun. Turning his body around like a twister, the spark cleaved through several ameliorites, cutting them down like a motor saw to a shrub. As these monsters fell, and more approached, Void charged up his axe with a burning force of electricity, and then threw it forwards, creating a line of stunned, shocked ameliorites, now with slashed open holes through their chests. Watching his cherished weapon land with a slash to one of the monster's heads, Void turned to his left-hand side and activated a Nova Rune shield. Deploying a battle mask over his face, the spark instantly charged through the frozen and buzzing ameliorites, exploding them apart to muck as his energized shield met their gaping stomached forms. Ceasing his little charge, Void slid across the ground and regained his axe, but found there to still be more ameliorites left within their path. "Void, be careful!" Jida called as she dismembered another monster in two with her blades. Scowling with an annoyed stare, Void retracted his battle axe and proceeded to bring forth his two hooks of cosmic electricity. As the remainder of the horde approached, Void scowled beneath his mask and rushed them head-on, beginning his onslaught once again. Twirling his body around several times mid-stride, the spark extended his leashed hooks and practically became an electrified twister. Round and round his weapons and upper torso went, dismembering the freaks of nature in one quick swoop. As the first half of the horde dissolved back to matter, Void swung his left hook around and lashed it upon one of the creatures. Moments after, he swung his right and lodged them both into the monster's tendril-like head, proceeding to then fling it around with a powerful slam upon the ground. "Behind you!" Joby then squealed as another wave of monsters approached from underneath the bridge. Quickly whipping his right hook around, Void lodged his dagger-like end into the stomach of the nearest beast, and instantly pulled both him and Joby forwards to its slimy form. As the two sparks neared, Void stomped into the creature's eye, and then flipped them both over its head to now stand behind the remaining monsters. Swinging his hooks around for one final strike, Void lodged them into the back of the next Ameliorite, and sent a powerful surge of electricity into its body. Turning himself around once more and then twice, Void charged the monster up like a bomb, and then slammed it hard upon the remaining Ameliorites, shattering them apart with one powerful blast, leaving just one to remain. Rushing forward with its arm outstretched, the last Ameliorite upon the bridge went in for Void's neck, but was quickly discarded as a large, glowing yellow fist was shot forward from Joby's small hand, smashing the creature's eye in and killing it upon impact. Looking over his shoulder, Void met Joby's angered face while she dematerialized her light matter hand. Smirking, the older spark nodded and spoke in gratitude. "Not bad, Sweet Pea. Not bad," he mentioned before kneeling down and finally retrieving his spear from the ground. I didn't know I could do that. Thanks." Joby replied with a small little smile. I think the bridge is cleared. Let's get moving," Jida exclaimed as everyone regrouped together and caught their breaths. "I agree, but how do we find Atlas or Evelyn? The city's massive." As Nock asked this, a sudden array of portals opened above Aurora, and from them dropped out the army of crescents, all landing in different sectors within the fancy side of the public war zone. "Just follow the chaos. Wherever they are, lots of fear and damage follows." As these words were spoken by Joby, a distant explosion erupted apart, a skyscraper a few miles off, all while the reformatter levitated with a fear-inducing aura not too far off either. "Well, there we go. Alfred, you think you and your friends can get citizens to safety?" Void asked as the distant screams of the panicked arose in echoes across the city.
We will do our best, I promise you that.
The large bird replied, before leaping up upon one of the bridge's rail beams and teleporting away to be with his tribe. "Oh, farewell, you gorgeous hunk of feathers. I didn't even get to say bye," Coco sadly exclaimed while fist-bumping her chest. "Good then. Alright everyone, let's move. We're running out of time," Void exclaimed as he led the charge forwards to the city, all while snow and golden rays of smoky light beamed upon them all. Within the deeper sector of Aurora's great city, a battle had been raging on within the streets, one between that of police officers and firemen against the ferocious Ameliorites. These law defenders and flame conquerors had been standing on guard by an underground railway tunnel, where hundreds of innocent lives were staying to be safe from the monsters above. But the line of defense was quickly beginning to falter, and drastically so. Standing behind a police cruiser, a rookie cop in his mid-20s stood and fired off small rounds from his holster pistol. He had dark brown, curved yet spiked up hair, and a deep, almost ocean blue skin. His white eyes were widened with stricken fear and strain as he took off shot after shot towards the monsters that had now begun to attack firefighters within their truck. "Sangston, I'm running out of ammo over here! You got any spares?" Another cop called the blue one's name, leaving rookie officer Sangston to turn and reply, but instantly watch in horror as the cop who called his name was tackled and drained by energy. Sangston shouted, taking a few shots off at the monster that eradicated his fellow officer. His bullets barely struck the beast, only hitting a select few strands, but mostly just going right through its tendril-looking form. Sweat poured down Sangston's brow. It had only been his first month on the job, and now an alien invasion was commencing all around him, looking to leave him as the last one standing between the creatures and those below. "Come on! Come on!" he shouted in angered fear as the Ameliorite stood up with a growl. Raising his pistol, Sangston pulled the trigger, only to find that he himself was now out of ammo, leaving nothing but dread in his stomach to rise and engulf his soul. Throwing the gun aside, the rookie cop simply raised his fists up, not having any other option to defend himself, knowing full well that his end was near. "Come on!" Sangston cried again as the monster got ready to attack. But before it could, the officer was startled by the sight of a spear striking the creature in the side of the head and into the back seat of the police car. Gasping, the rookie cop stumbled back and turned to his left, watching as a group of strange-looking people appeared from the smoky-looking golden fog. "You all right, officer?" Well then called, that one being the leader of this pack, that being Void himself. As he quickly approached, the spark pulled his spear free from the now dead ameliorite and turned to face the heavy-breathing cop. "Blue Bullet? Is that you?" Officer Sangston asked, recognizing the spark's iconic metal mask and blue cyber-looking eyes. Retracting the said mask, Void met the eyes of the stunned officer before replying in a tired breath. "The one and only. Are you alright? You hurt?" The spark inquired as Joby peered out from over his shoulder. "Whoa. I'm okay. Thank you." Sangston replied as Jida and the others approached and walked past the two, preparing themselves for the next horde ahead. "Wait, the Phantom?" Sangston then asked, recognizing the musician's cosmic fire within her hands. What is happening? Where have you two been?" The cop continued to ask as Void took notice of the empty weapon on the ground. Looking back up, the spark was then drawn to the name tag at the cop's left-hand side, reading the name, Matthew Sangston. "Listen, Matt, you need to get the shelter. It's dangerous, out of your lead. Me and my crew here are the only ones that can give you and everyone else a fighting chance." Void spoke as some of the crescents leapt into battle from above. "With all due respect, sir, I can't do that. There's people that need my help. I have to stand my guard and protect this tunnel. It's my duty." Sangston replied before looking down to the subway entrance. "Listen to me. We'll clear out this area. You lead those people further in. Get as far as you can, all underground. Go to the sewers if you have to. Don't stop until you're certain that you're safe, you hear me?" Void beckoned before he looked over the Tucker. As he did, the spark whistled and made a gun gesture with his hand. Nodding, the large bull of a man took out a pistol from his side pocket and tossed it to the spark, who caught it with ease. "Here, use this only when necessary. Don't stop till you're certain that it's safe. You understand?" Void asked as he handed the hand cannon to the rookie cop. Yes, I understand." Sangston sharply replied before placing the weapon in his holster. "Good then. Good luck, officer." Void gestured as he patted the cop's shoulder and then turned to join his family at the front lines, but stopped upon the cop saying a few more words. "If I don't see you again, I just gotta thank you and the Phantom for your efforts in helping make the city better. Good luck." Sangston thanked as he began to back off into the tunnel. "Don't need to thank me, Matthew. And please, call me Void." The spark said with a nod before readying his spear and hurtling the police car. "Void. Huh." Sangston muttered before nodding with a small smirk and turning to the tunnel, ready to escort the civilians underground as per the spark's wishes.
"Here they come!"
Joby squeaked as the next horde of ameliorites charged the spark and his allies. Gaining speed upon his feet, Void went into the fight head first once more, and ready to spear. Approaching besides both Jida and Coco, the spark began his fight once again, now with a rapid switch up in weapons. With a sideward twirl, Void swung his spear around with the same formation as a golfer putting their ball. As the blade's sharp end came back and over, its lower sharpened tip slashed upwards and across the nearest ameliorite's throat with a glowing spray of energy. Looking over her uncle's shoulder, Joby winced with a quick self-debate, but soon enough made up her mind. She couldn't just sit on Void's back. She had to help out more, fight back as she so expressively exclaimed earlier. Without warning, the little spark suddenly propelled herself off Void's shoulders and lunged towards an ameliorite. Both of her hands ignited the light with a yellow flare, as what looked to have been two tiny daggers sprouted from the roofs of her hands. "Joby!" Void shouted in surprise, but watched in amazement as the little girl made quick work of the monster at her feet. "By Matira!" The spark muttered, watching as his niece began to perform similar attacks like her own father, evades and quick slashes. It was clear that whatever genetics resided within the little girl, that it carried over beyond an evolved mind. Although her attacks were sloppy and animalistic, it was still that of a gift, or rather, a curse from her father's creation process. As another monster came charging in upon his left, Void took his sights off Joby and side-eyed the target. Quickly activating his Nova Shield, the older Spark delivered a powerful side bash into the Matter Experiment's face, knocking it over as Jida suddenly leapt over his own head. Spinning through the air like a fireball, the musician raised her fists up high and then brought him down with a burning force of fury. Erupting from the impact came a wave of cosmic fire that blew several Ameliorites back and reduced them to ash. "You alright?" Void questioned as he slid himself over to stand beside his wife. "The little one is making me feel a lot slower on my toes, but I'm okay. So are they," Jida replied while patting her guarded belly. "How's she holding up?" The flaming-haired beaut then asked while looking at Joby, who was handling herself fairly well. She flipped and slashed with the elegance of a true Spark, something that made Void ponder if it had actually been her genetics, or rather, she had been trained in some regard. He didn't know, but it was a sight to behold. "Better than I'd imagine," Void expressed back before the married pair turned their sights upon another wave of monsters, all running in with the intent to drain their life force. "They don't stop coming!" Nock bellowed as he activated a pair of rockets to fire from the Thumper's backplate. "Quit your yapping and start blasting, Rogers!" Tucker boasted as he both shot and punched the monsters in his path. "Come on, you sissies! Show me what you're made of!" The massive horned man bellowed before losing ammo in his gun, and then taking hold of its blast end to act as a whacking bat. Landing beside them, a few of the Crescents joined into the fight, as they all pressed on through the streets, leaping over cars, evading tendril strikes, all like a machine. One massive and powerful machine. "This is madness!" Sarv hooted while taking shot after shot upon nearing Matter Beasts from both their lefts and rights. "Words have never been spoken more truthfully, Miss Weber," Jet exclaimed as well, adjusting his engines and launching a pair of rockets from their barrels. "Enemies to the left!" Coco then cried towards Void as she lashed her tongue upon one of the creatures and pulled herself forward into a staff jab. Upon hearing this, Void retracted his spear and summoned forth his Nova Blades. In a quick torso spin, he slashed apart the assailant to his left and then repeated towards another upon his right. "Keep moving," he told himself. "Gotta keep moving," as Pofnu leapt in front of him to strike upon yet another creature. "We're almost through," Jida shouted as she projectile warped a bus from the road and towards a wall of coarse creations, flattening them back to a misty energy. The road they all fought upon was almost cleared. Skyscrapers stood tall to their lefts and rights. Many cars and locked doors greeted them upon all sides. And all Void could see were citizens peeking through their windows. From the poor to the rich, the citizens of Aurora looked to have actually come together, united by this travesty he had unexpectedly brought upon the world. Void tried to listen to Jida's words, but still felt responsible. He should have listened to Joby, listened to his gut. All he could do now was set this right. He had to try. "It's okay! Everyone's gonna be okay!" Void shouted aloud for the onlookers to hear, while re-swinging his axe from both sides. With quick movements, Void switched between all of his weapons. 1 second he swung the axe. The next, his hooks were flying through the air. Rockets flew from his chest while even his little hatchets emerged and cleaved right through the monsters ahead. "Uncle Void, is your wing healed yet? If you can fly, it might help," Joby asked while leaping back upon what she had started to see as her new father. A real father. "Negative, kiddo. The wing is still busted up good. All we can rely on is determination and spirit," Void exclaimed as he twirled through the air and used his arm cannons to good use upon a set of Ameliorites below.
Damn! Lots of them ahead!
Tucker croaked out while throwing his empty gun aside and pulling another from his back. Looking onward, what almost looked like an entangled cluster or conjoined horde of matter beasts scrambled towards the group, akin to a Rat King effect. The next thing that everyone took notice of was the fact that this was the last bunch within the street they reside within, and the last force between them and the innocent lives below. "Everyone stand back!" Void boasted while gently brushing Joby back to the ground. "What are you doing?" Jada asked, but suddenly closed her mouth as the familiar hum of Void's horns charging with energy was heard for all. Retracting his weapons, the Spark deployed his mask once more and ran headstrong towards the cluster, growing a brighter shade of blue with each step taken. Then with a yell and leap, Void lunged forward into the monsters, burning to life as a powerful shaded explosion of blue electricity, fizzling the beast back to that of pure energy. Landing with a roll, Void fell forwards a few feet, but quickly stood again, teeth baring beneath the mask. Slowly craning his eyes upwards, he retracted his mother's face guard and eyed the slowly rotating reformatter, which looked to now be pulsating with a stronger aura of energy. Only a few hours were left on the clock. They had to move, and fast. "Forward!" Void called, leading the charge once more, heading deeper into the more chaotic side of the city. Going through street after street, turn upon turn, Void and his crew continued the fight on and on as they made their way closer to the reformatter's chaotic underside. "One of them has to be close, Uncle Void," Joby assured, while being lashed upon his back once more. "I hope you're right, kiddo, because I'm not sure how much more we'll be able to handle," Void replied with a tired breath as he leapt up upon a broken chunk of building to look out over the city. A ways off, levitated the reformatter that was now stationed above the city's central park. The once extravagant and life-filled portion of Aurora was now reduced to a divot within the ground, caused by the sudden pressure of the reformatter's blast descent. Ameliorates littered the burning streets that surrounded the same park, leaving an audible groan to escape some of the fighters' mouths. They had all been at it for another hour or so, leaving about 3 or 2 left before all things went boom and game over. I think I need a minute to rest, Jada suddenly expressed with a wince and clutch to her stomach. Turning and seeing her hand gestures, Void's eyes widened with a wave of anxiety before he approached the issue. Hey, you alright?" he softly asked, while gently helping Jada sit upon the ground. Looking up with a firm wince, she glanced from Void and then to her stomach with a worried shrug. "Yeah, it just felt a little stronger, I guess," the musician retorted while taking in a long breath and easing the strain in her body. What do you mean by that?" the Spark inquired as Jed approached and suddenly scanned Jida with his cubed screen face. Oh dear," the robot expressed with slight fear, getting everyone's attention in the worst way possible. "Oh dear? What do you mean by oh dear?" Void asked as a cold sweat poured down his brow. Craning his cubed head back up with an uneasy stare, Jet adjusted his mechanical windpipes before explaining. "Not to alarm you all, but it appears that Mistress Woods, her water is nearing the breaking point. If not at some point today, then surely by tomorrow she'll be due," Jet revealed with a small raise in his hands. What? Both Void and Jida shouted in shock to the news, before looking at one another in cold stares. Before anyone else could comment or freak out with panic, there suddenly came the sound of some kind of missiling projectile from behind. Turning their heads, everyone watched on as what looked to have been a slim, yellow capsule fired itself out from the reformatter and disappeared behind the buildings that blocked its descent from view. Uh-oh. Joby quietly stuttered out, focusing all the attention upon her. We gotta go. We gotta hide. We gotta go somewhere," she blurted, leaving Nock to turn his thumper and look down at the small spark. "What do you mean by we gotta go?" the mechanic questioned as a sudden, familiar roar erupted from the city ahead. Turning back forward, the others didn't seem to recognize the terrifying sound, except for Void, Jida, and Joby, leaving their stomachs dropping with a wave of dread. No. Was that the Ladon? Void firmly asked as he slowly turned and helped Jida stand back upon her feet. Sort of, Joby replied, just as the beast made its presence known. Bursting out from the buildings in the distance, the conductor arose once again, except it wasn't the normal one. What emerged before everyone's eyes looked to be a recreation, a mimicry of the beast's worm-like form, taken up by strands of matter and the like. A cruel reflection, it seemed. "Whoa, whoa, whoa!" Tucker yelped as everyone instantly took a step back, watching as the massive worm began to thrash buildings aside and burrow through the streets. What the hell? How? Why? Void cried out as his body began to buzz with stress and echoed electricity. "Mirror matter," Joey then exclaimed, watching as the beast rose again and again, taking out nearby skyscrapers and others. "It's a stabilized and controlled version of the conductor's power. They rarely release these things. I don't know why they do it now." Joey squeaked with fear as the large beast suddenly swayed its massive head and looked in the hero's direction, seemingly eyeing them from that ways off. "Unless they're trying to get me closer to them. Draw me in." Void speculated with strain as the fake Hebai roared and began to quickly slither its way towards the group. "Void!" Jida gasped out while shaking his arm. "Portal, dear! Portal!" she exclaimed again in a rising panic as the beast began to grow in speed. Activating his portal opener, Void attempted to fire a shot into the ground, but found that the reformattor's reach still affected the option, leaving a ringing sensation of dread to fill his ears. "Oh my god," the spark muttered as everyone readied themselves for the large behemoth. Yet, just as the beast crossed through the 100-foot barrier, something truly remarkable and unexpected happened. Bursting from the skies with a fiery constellation portal came the god of cosmic fire, Warnog, roaring with tremendous fury, all while the grandmother rode atop his back with the blade of Sleek held up high. Before anyone had time to process what was happening, the fire deity opened its jaws wide and clamped down hard upon the fake Ladon's neck, smashing it to the ground and through buildings in a fiery haze of anger. "Holy hell!" Kot shouted in shock, while Nox suddenly began to fist bump the air with the Thumper's arm cannons. "Yeah! Yeah!" he roared, just as several other snakes crossed through the constellation barrier. The familiar beasts that had once terrorized Aurora re-emerged as their teal-green, ghostly selves, but this time on the side of good. Riding upon their backs weren't many, but a good array of Ripples and ex-Constrictor clan members, armored up and ready to fight with melee weapons at the ready. "By the gods, the old Glip Dip actually did it!" Coco expressed with a smile as both Delilah and Warnog went toe-to-toe with the Hebai, opening the pathway for them to charge the reformatter. Dropping down, the people of Ophis landed into the fight, joining alongside the now emerging Crescents to help eradicate the army of Ameliorites ahead. However, that wasn't the last of it, for a third ally looked to slowly, yet then quickly appear to join the fray. "Look!" Sarv blurted as she pointed to the city streets, as well as the ones behind them all. Looking around, Void and the others suddenly felt a shock as residents of Aurora began to appear, holding makeshift weapons and actively running to join the fight ahead. Many didn't have artillery weapons. They had bats, their cars, frying pans, really anything they could use to fight. "Whoa, what's gone into them? Why aren't they hiding?" Joby asked as several civilians ran by them and towards the fight, seemingly looking to have the change in heart. That's when the sound of someone speaking aloud caught their attention. "Jida Woods?" the sound of a young man asked. Turning their heads, everyone took notice of a dust-covered individual who had a club in his hand. He also had green skin with brown hair and couldn't have been no older than 18 years of age. But the look in his eyes was that of something shocking. It was courage. "We heard your message, ma'am. We heard your confession," he began, causing the musician's eyes to fluster up with surprise. "Look, I know you're busy, but your words spread to everyone like wildfire, miss. It touched a lot of us. So, we're not going to sit by and let you and your friends fight alone. You've done so much for us these last few years. So let us help you return the favor. We'll see you down there, Phantom," the man said before suddenly running down a roadway hill to join the massive battle ahead. With a shocked breath, Jida raised her left hand up to her chest in stunned silence. These people came out of their shelters to help fight because of her words. Words she had thought wouldn't reach anyone. The feeling of warmth and pride for their son's bravery to stand and fight alongside the figure she truthfully wanted to lay to rest sent a wave of confidence into her soul, one that she hadn't felt since meeting her husband. Both the rich and the poor were now united, fighting side by side to save their home, all through one simple message to all. Raising his mechanical hand up, Void patted his wife's shoulder and nodded to her with a proud stare. "Looks like the Phantom really meant something to people after all," he assured with a confident smile. Without saying a word, Jida's stunned face quivered into that of a grateful stare that ended with the look of determination within her wintry eyes. Let's go find your fellow Sparks," she boasted with a flare in her hair. "Are you going to be able to fight still?" Coco asked, making Jida nod once more. "More than willing," she ended, now taking the lead herself, to everyone's surprised and now following steps. Charging together and down the roadside hill, everyone readied their weapons once more and crossed the barrier into the massive battle ahead. Leaping forward as one unified team, both Void and Jida landed side by side and struck the ground with a combined and powerful attack. From their impact, a pulse of purple erupted out and cleared a section for all to traverse through. Running in with heavy footfalls, the Thumper with both Knock and Cot spun and blasted away with incredible accuracy, while Jet dove down from above and released a set of bombs to the lone monsters. Both Sarv and Tucker joined the fight with their fellow Aurora citizens, although Coco, Pofnu, and some other Ripples went on the defense, acting as an animalistic tag team for all to see. Together, Void, Jida, along with Joby, worked as a powerful trio. The three all struck with their respective weapons, Void with his electricity, Jida with her fire, and now Joby with her light matter, creating a glowing visual of blues, oranges, and yellows that truthfully led the charge in their darkest hour. This was their world, their home, and no one would take that from them. Not now, and not ever. Amidst their little family charge, Void swayed his head up and caught the glimpse of something for only a moment. Turning away from the onslaught was a metal tail, that of Evelyn's. She appeared to be fleeing the scene and making her way towards the park in the distance. "Evelyn!" Void suddenly boasted with an ignition in his hooks. "What? Where?" Jida asked as they continued the fight. "I just saw her. She entered Central Park. I gotta go after her." Void called towards his girls as they eyed him with understanding yet nervous stares. "Will you be alright by yourselves?" The Spark then asked, just as Alfred and the other Crescents landed into the fray, serving as a powerful army when combined with the Ripples and citizens of Aurora, showing that they were most certainly capable of being okay. "Just go get her, Blue Bullet," Jida stated before grabbing the Spark's arm and pulling him into a kiss. Gently pulling back, Void nodded to his wife and then to Joby, who looked on with a worried stare to her uncle. "Please, be careful. She can be really deadly," the little girl muttered while standing beside her newly appointed mother. "Always am, always will," Void replied with a wink before turning and latching his hooks upon a nearby building. Using this, he pulled himself forward and then up and over the battle, swinging from one building and then to the next, all up till reaching the gates of Central Park and landing within, going from cold city stone to a smoky, forested environment. Halting in his pursuit, Void glanced from both his left and right, falling still to the eerie silence that surrounded him. Although the battle from all around was muffled, the park itself almost felt like a safe haven, a Garden of Eden, as one would say. Within its fog-like smoke, small pellets of snow slowly drizzled down, glinting within the bright yellow light that profusely shined between the Reformattor's storm barrier. It all felt too peaceful, Void thought. A little too peaceful. Activating his arm cannons, the Spark took a long breath and began the trek forward through the dense park, all while the Reformatter hummed distantly above. Each step Void took sounded akin to a gunshot being fired off. From a twig snap to the crunching of snow, Void went with each one, worried that he would blow his position. However, the Spark was unsure if he was the hunter, or rather, the hunted in the moment. The trees were dense, filled with clusters of fern leaves and very early sprouting buds for the spring. Small birds chirped on, and even tiny critters scuttled along, subverting the Spark's expectations to the circumstances. Yet, it wasn't long till Void came across a large divot within the ground. Being the size of a Major League Baseball field, Void eyed the almost 10-foot deep imprint within the ground. Grass and stone were thrown up, leaking pipes jutted out of the mudslides, all while the smoky fog continued to descend down in a grayish golden haze. "Where you at, Evelyn? I know you're here." Void shouted aloud, stating his presence while leaping into the divot. Gazing upwards, the Spark stared into the distant glowing spike of the Reformatter that would blast the beam to extract all he knew and loved. It made him sick, but through it all, he had to try and convince his fellow Sparks to turn away from this carnage. There was still good in them. Void knew there was. And if anyone would be able to help them turn over a new leaf, it would be him. "Little one." Void suddenly stopped mid-stride. It was her, speaking a good few feet behind himself. Collecting his breath, the Spark turned his head and eyed Evelyn Scorch, who stood with her menacingly swaying tail, but held the face that was dropped to that of a conflicted sorrow. "Ev." Void answered back as he fully turned the face of Spark they had considered as a big sister. For a long few moments, the two didn't speak a word. Evelyn knew that if she were to, Void would retort with some kind of resentment, while the smaller Spark himself was trying to collect his thoughts on where to begin. "New body armor. It looks good." Evelyn complimented, however, sending Void to speak on his own terms. "Stop talking. Do me a favor and just look around," Void expressed while starting to stare with slowly angering eyes. "Look around yourself. Listen. Feel. Do you hear that?" he asked as Evelyn's eyes lowered to that of an ashamed dog's stare. "It's a familiar tune, isn't it? This is the same song you and I both heard many years ago. The one that all our people heard before their ends." Void said aloud, leaving Evelyn to clench her fist and look to the side. "The only difference is that it's now you three playing the instruments to that tune. No matter which way you choose to justify it, you and I both know that this is wrong. You can't even look at me in the face." Void spoke aloud, feeling his shoulders slump to everything that had been happening in the moment. "I never intended to walk this path, little one. There have been many times where I wanted to run away. But Core..." Evelyn stuttered out as tears welled within her eyes. "He told us, promised us over and over that the sacrifices justified the greater picture. Looking back on it, me and Atlas should have just walked away from the start. Evelyn sadly expressed as her tail quivered with a shiver. And now I'm giving you that chance. Do the right thing and disable the firewall. Let us in so we can stop Core. Set things right. Void exclaimed as he took a step forward and held out his hand. You've all made mistakes. Big mistakes. But somewhere deep down in your souls, I know you're not the monsters everyone views you as now. Both you and Atlas saved me once. So let me save you. The little spark called as he gestured towards Evelyn to take his hand. You don't have to do this. For a long moment, the taller spark stared down at the smaller spark's palm. Tears were welding larger within her scarred eyes, as her gears began to turn within her mind. She was debating, very much so within, till at last, she responded. How does one not call themselves a monster after taking uncountable amount of lives? Evelyn retorted as she suddenly swung her tail around and latched its claws around Void's neck. In shock, the younger Nova Sun felt his body get lifted up while Evelyn deployed a sleeping syringe from her index finger. I can't just walk away from what I've helped aid in doing, little one. I can't go back to who I was. My life can never return to normal after all of this. The guilt and scars will follow me wherever I go. Stopping now will change nothing. Evelyn boasted with a ramble as rivers of tears fell down her cheeks, all while Void struggled to get out of her grasp. It's never too late to change, Evelyn. Don't do this. Let me help you. Void exclaimed as he caught Evelyn's syringe heading right for his neck. How can you believe that I deserve a chance to stop? The damage has been done. She cried out as Void huffed and wheezed to Evelyn's tail tightening around his neck. Let yourself sleep. When you wake up, you and all those you care about will be safe on the reformator. Don't make this any harder than it already is. Evelyn bellowed as Void suddenly charged his horns and blew the two of them away from one another. Landing apart upon their feet, the two sparks eyed each other in a conflicted heat as both of their thoughts raced at a hefty speed. You're wrong, Evelyn. You do deserve a second chance. You don't have to be this monster. Not anymore. Void tried to reason as Evelyn quickly swung her tail back around and extended its sharp blades upon its end, as well as from her forearms. It's too late for me, Void. I don't deserve your care. Taking a long breath, Void activated his arm hooks and then deployed his battle mask, knowing full well it was now going to take more than words to convince his friend. It's never too late. Void retorted as Evelyn's Scorch made her move. Launching herself forward with a propelling slam in her tail, Evelyn flipped herself through the air and deployed her hooks towards Void in a glowing purple strike. In response, Void swung his similar weapons in return, latching and entangling both of their hooks around in a messy knot. Without wasting a second, Evelyn landed upon her heels and yanked Void towards her, cutting his energy short and grabbing him with a tight chokehold. Swinging downwards in a ferocious slam, the larger spark smashed Void into the wet dirt and attempted to stick her syringe into his body once again. But Void wasn't about to go down easily. Grabbing Evelyn by her arms, the smaller spark sent a surge of his electricity into her mechanical limbs, causing her to shout and loosen her grip upon him. Using this to his advantage, Void quickly flipped himself back upwards, striking Evelyn in her chin. Landing back upon his feet, Void eyed the stumbling spark, who quickly flung her tail around in a sharp slash in response to the kick. Craning her gaze back forward, she looked upon Void with puffy, tear-filled eyes that looked to scream an indiscernible amount of woes. Staring back, Void felt his own tears beginning to weld in his eyes, as the two charged at one another once again. Raising their fists back, both the sparks summoned Nova Runes to their knuckles and clashed with a devastating force. A wave of both blue and purple Nova energy erupted across the park, as the two went back and forth in deflecting strikes, unsure on how the fight would end for either of them.
Evelyn, I know it seems like you're stuck, but you're not. You don't have to do this. You can turn things around right here and right now.
Void called as he caught both of her fists within his hands.
You talk as though what I've done doesn't matter. I've hurt people, destroyed lives. How could I possibly turn away now after all I've done? I'm a monster!
Evelyn screamed as she pushed Void back and swung her tail around with a violent force. Flipping out of the way, the smaller spark dodged the strike and took out several trees from behind. Landing back down, he dodged again as Evelyn came right back around with a mighty display of fury.
How can you even contemplate forgiving me? How?
She bellowed again as Void activated his spear and deflected another tail strike.
Because I know who you are, Evelyn! You're my friend!
Void boasted upon catching another fist strike to his face.
You're scared, full of regret. I understand the feeling. We Sparks, we gotta stick together, help one another. You're like my sister, Ev, and I know there's a crying voice inside that wants to change.
Void exclaimed while retracting his spear upon catching another fist.
There's still time to stop this. Don't repeat this mistake again. Don't repeat history. There's still time to stop this, all of this.
Void continued to beckon as Evelyn yelled with a sobbing cry. Grabbing him by the head, the sharp-tailed spark suddenly ignited with a burning red rage and blasted Void away, ending with his body slamming hard into a tree not too far off.
I forged my own chains, burned my own scars, Void. No matter what you say, you can't erase the past. A past that I can never forgive myself for.
Evelyn bellowed as Void quickly went back into the fight, standing a ways off from her with his hands in front of himself.
Then why do you continue to enact this? If it burdens you so badly, then why? Evelyn, talk to me!
Void begged as the larger spark began to swing her tail once more, attempting to knock Void out with a swift manner.
Because it's all I have left! Atlas, Core, we've done this for so long! To back out now would mean we destroyed for nothing! This is the only way we can save our race, Void. No matter how much it hurts. It would be a crime to say that it was all for nothing!
Evelyn shouted as Void caught her tail and felt himself get pushed back several feet.
These are the scars that will never heal, little one. These are my sins. Sins that I can't allow myself to forgive.
Catching his breath, Void pushed back against the dagger-like blade that protruded from the spark's tail. But he knew he had to keep trying, to convince his fellow spark to stop her fight.
Evelyn, remember what we talked about. Your scars. They don't define you. It's who you are on the inside that matters. I can hear it in your voice. You want to stop, but you're scared to try.
Void began as he started to push away the claw that was weakening under the sorrow of his words.
You are Evelyn Scorch, the beautiful geisha of Salvaheim, not some general to a group of monsters. You're caring, kind. You helped save my life, and now you can do that again for so many other people.
Void went on as Evelyn slowly began to give up and buckle to her knees.
Doing the right thing can be scary, but this way of life, this isn't what we Sparks stand for, and it's not what you stand for.
Now sobbing, Evelyn fell to one knee, but through it all, still attempted to latch Void in her tail, but the younger spark continued to press on with confidence for his friend.
Your scars don't define you, Evelyn. You do. You hear me? You choose what you want to be, not what has been.
As Void exclaimed that last phrase, something in Evelyn shifted. Like a dam breaking from her eyes, the older spark retracted her tail and crumbled to both her knees. Raising her hands, Evelyn gripped her head and sunk further into her own sorrows and guilt, yelling and crying in a mind-splitting state that Void quickly took notice of.
Why? Why? Why?
Evelyn choked out as her tail quivered with an uneasy shiver.
Why do you care? How can you see light in me after everything you've learned? How?
Evelyn continued as Void slowly approached, now retracting all of his weapons, showing that he was done fighting.
I'm a monster, Void! That's all I am and ever will be!
She went on as Void stood tall over a crumbling form. No more. He suddenly blurted, causing Evelyn to slowly crane her head back up. No more. Getting on his knees and retracting his mask, Void met the glinting white eyes of Evelyn from behind her visor and stared with a powerful wave of trust. I lost you all once before, and I will not lose you again. But this, all of this isn't who you are, and I need you to prove it to yourself. Reaching out, Void took hold of Evelyn's syringe finger and raised it up to the side of his neck. I am the only one capable of convincing my brother to stop what he's doing. And if you strike me now, this world will die and leave another stain in your struggles. I know you can change your ways, but you must convince yourself that you can too. What will you choose, Evelyn? Void asked, letting go of her hand that was now inches away from injecting Void with a sleeping toxin. For a long few moments, Evelyn debated on what she would do, capture Void, or stop herself from aiding in another genocide. 1 second passed, then another, and another, until at last, she finally decided. Without warning, Evelyn did in fact move, but instead of giving her fellow Spark a sleeping shot, it was instead that of a tight and quivering embrace.
I'm sorry, sweets. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry.
Evelyn whined as Void breathed out a sigh of relief and hugged Evelyn back.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
She repeated, leaving Void to nod thankfully and rub her back. I know you are. It's okay. It's okay. You're alright. You did the right thing. Void replied as he rocked the larger Spark in his arms. As all of this transpired, Jida, Joby, and all the others in their group appeared from the trees and stared on with shock towards the sight, seeing that Void had actually done it. Evelyn was done fighting, and instead, what felt and looked to be years of pent-up stress and rage and so much more spilled from her eyes and body that Void quickly took note of. Pulling back, he eyed the sides of his fellow Spark's helmet and noticed 2 latches upon each side. Reaching out, he clicked upon them, allowing for Evelyn's visor to slide up and reveal her face into the light. Raising his hands, Void wiped her tears, then held the side of her cheek, leaving the larger Spark to press into it with a sense of gratitude. Surrounding the two of them, Jida and the rest looked on with curiosity towards Evelyn, while Joby huddled behind her imprinted mother's leg, just staring at her with eyes of hatred. I've made terrible mistakes, said the sharp-tailed Spark, her voice now de-synthesized without the visor. And now you can fix them, Void added before standing back to his feet. The past will always be a lingering demon, Ev, but you've proven to me just now that you are more than willing to take the step in the right direction. If you drop the firewall now, I'll guide the other 2 on the same path. I promise. Void assured while looking up to the Reformattor's titanic build above. For a long moment, Evelyn stared upwards as well, but soon enough did the very thing that was needed. Raising her right arm up and around, she tapped upon a holographic control pad that caused a red flash to buzz across the Reformatter that slowly brought down the firewall within. Looking to his portal blaster option, Void found it to be open and instantly fired a blast that head upwards into the machine above. Turning his sights back towards his fellow Spark, Void nodded to her as she reactivated her visor and then just leaned up against a tree, feeling a massive weight of thoughts piling in her head. Evelyn, Void expressed before suddenly being cut off.
Go. Just go.
She expressed before curling up into a ball beside the large chunk of wood. "Should we?" Jada asked before Void raised his hand. "Give her time. Let her rest. There's more important matters at hand," Void assured as he looked at Evelyn's form and then towards the portal. "If I can convince her, I can convince the others. Let's go." The spark said with confidence as he crossed through, having the others in tow, all up till Joby stopped and turned to look upon Evelyn. For a moment, the little girl thought to say something, but decided that perhaps she would save it for another time. Turning, she crossed through the portal as well, leaving Evelyn alone with her mind that was beginning to rethink everything.